I still remember the silence that fell over the room, thick and suffocating, after my stepdad Mark shoved me. My chair scraped backward, hitting the wall with a hollow thud that echoed the one in my chest. "This seat is for my real daughter. Get out." He snarled, his eyes blazing with a hatred I'd never seen directed at me so openly. Right there, in front of the entire family, at the Christmas dinner table, just as we were about to carve the turkey. Was I wrong for what I did next? Tell me if you would have done the same thing, because I honestly still question it sometimes, even after all these years. The story really starts much earlier, long before that disastrous Christmas. My mom, Sarah, met Mark when I was about 10 years old. My biological father had passed away suddenly a few years prior, leaving a gaping hole in our lives. Mom struggled, trying to balance work and raising me, and for a while it was just the two of us against the world. Then Mark came along. He was charming, at least at first. He had a booming laugh and a way of making Mom smile that I hadn't seen since Dad died. I wanted to like him truly. I wanted my mom to be happy. He wasn't overtly mean to me in the beginning. He'd occasionally make little jabs, playful teasing, I thought, but looking back, it was always tinged with something sharper, something that suggested I wasn't quite his responsibility, or even his concern. Things changed when his daughter, Chloe, moved in with us a year later. Chloe was 16, 2 years older than me, and came with a heavy dose of teenage angst and a seemingly endless well of resentment towards her dad for making her move. Her mother had remarried and moved across the country, and Chloe felt abandoned. Mark, in an effort to bond with his estranged daughter, lavished her with attention and gifts, trying to make up for lost time. This is when I started to become invisible. My mom, bless her heart, tried to make it work. She attempted to foster a sense of family, planning outings, insisting on family dinners, and trying to get Chloe and me to bond. It was an uphill battle. Chloe saw me as an intruder, a symbol of her father's new life, and she often made her disdain clear, sometimes subtly, sometimes not so subtly. Mark, instead of mediating, often sided with Chloe, or simply ignored the tension, chalking it up to girl drama. I remember one incident, a few months after Chloe moved in, where we were arguing over the TV remote. A classic sibling squabble. Chloe, in a fit of pique, threw the remote at me, hitting me in the eye. It wasn't hard enough to cause serious injury, but it stung, and I cried out. Mark, who was in the living room reading a newspaper, simply looked up, sighed, and said, "Chloe, be careful. She's fragile." He then turned to me and said, "Stop being such a crybaby. It's just a remote." Mom was out at the time, and I felt a profound sense of injustice, a burning heat behind my eyes that wasn't just from the impact of the remote. It was the first time I truly understood that I was on my own in this new family dynamic. Over the next few years, things progressively worsened. Mark and Chloe formed an impenetrable unit, a real family, as Chloe often called it, implicitly excluding me. My mom was often oblivious, or perhaps chose to be. She worked long hours, and when she was home, she was often exhausted. I tried to talk to her, to explain how I felt, how I was being treated, but she would always reassure me, "He loves you, honey. He's just adjusting. Chloe's going through a lot." I didn't believe it. His love felt conditional, almost non-existent. My room became my sanctuary. I spent most of my time there, reading, doing homework, anything to avoid the uncomfortable atmosphere of the common areas. Dinners were the worst. Mark and Chloe would talk about their day, their friends, their inside jokes, often completely ignoring my presence, or Mom's attempts to include me. It felt like I was a guest in my own home, an unwanted one. The feeling of being an outsider gnawed at me, turning me into a quieter, more withdrawn version of myself. I excelled in school, pouring all my energy into academics, finding solace in achievements that were purely my own. things Mark and Chloe couldn't diminish or take away. My 16th birthday was a particularly poignant example of how things were. I had wanted a specific camera, something I'd been saving up for, but it was expensive. Mom had promised to go halves with me. On my birthday morning, I came downstairs, excited for breakfast and gifts. Chloe was already there, beaming. On the table sat a brand new top of the line laptop, an exact model I knew Chloe had been wanting for months. "Happy birthday, Chloe," Mark boomed, handing her a brightly wrapped package. Chloe opened it, revealing the laptop. "Oh my God, Dad, you're the best," she shrieked. My heart sank. Mom quickly interjected, "Honey, it's my name's birthday today. We're going to get her camera later, right, love?" she said, nudging Mark. Mark, flustered, looked at me as if he'd forgotten or simply didn't care. "Oh, right, happy birthday, kid," he mumbled, and then quickly turned back to Chloe, complimenting her new gadget. I got a card with some money from Mom later, and a half-hearted apology about how Mark had misunderstood the dates. I never got the camera. Chloe, however, used her new laptop to FaceTime her friends, often loudly, making sure I could hear her laughter from my room. It solidified my understanding. I was secondary, an afterthought. As the years went on, I grew more independent, relying less on my family for emotional support and more on my friends. I worked part-time jobs, saved my money, and focused on getting into a good college, a ticket out of that house. The tension in the house escalated subtly, a slow boil rather than a sudden eruption. Chloe, now 18, was preparing for college, and the attention on her reached a fever pitch. Mark was practically obsessed with her applications, her essays, her future. My own college applications, which I had filled out meticulously and often on my own, were barely acknowledged. When I got into my dream school, a prestigious university several states away, I was ecstatic. I remember showing the acceptance letter to Mom, who cried tears of joy and hugged me tightly. Mark, however, just grunted, "Good for you. Hope you like student loans." He made no offer of financial help, despite being quite comfortable financially. Chloe, who had gotten into a good but less competitive local university, seemed to relish the fact that I would be so far away. Finally, some peace and quiet. She'd said, just loud enough for me to hear, "This brings us to that fateful Christmas." It was my last Christmas at home before leaving for college, a fact that was both a relief and, strangely, a source of underlying sadness. I had hoped, perhaps foolishly, that there might be some kind of truce, a recognition of this milestone. The house was decorated beautifully, festive lights twinkling, carols playing softly. My mom had cooked for days, creating a magnificent spread. Relatives, aunts, uncles, cousins, filled the living room, their laughter and chatter creating a warm, albeit somewhat chaotic, atmosphere. Mark was in high spirits, regaling everyone with stories, mostly about Chloe's accomplishments and her upcoming college plans. He barely acknowledged my presence, even when I tried to engage in conversation. I sat quietly, observing, a familiar ache in my chest. The dinner bell rang, and everyone moved towards the dining room. My mom had meticulously set the table, using her best china. There was a specific seat at the head of the table for Mark, one for Mom beside him, and then 2 seats directly opposite them. I naturally gravitated towards one of the empty seats, ready to sit down. Chloe was standing by the other, smirking. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have swallowed your pride and found another seat, or would you have stood your ground? What would your breaking point be? As I reached for the chair, Mark stepped in front of me, blocking my way. His face was flushed, whether from alcohol or just general Christmas cheer, I couldn't tell. But his eyes were cold. Not that one. He slurred, pointing to a smaller, less prominent chair tucked away near the kitchen door. "That seat's for Chloe. She's earned it. My blood ran cold. Chloe was already settling into the chair I had been heading for, a triumphant smirk on her face. I looked at my mom, who was still bustling from the kitchen, oblivious, or perhaps choosing to be. My aunt, sitting nearby, gave me a sympathetic but silent glance. I felt a surge of anger, hot and sharp, unlike anything I'd ever felt before. All the years of neglect, the slights, the feeling of being an outsider, coalesced into one unbearable moment. I looked at Mark, then at Chloe, who was now openly laughing at me. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself, but it was useless. "What do you mean, she's earned it?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady, despite the tremor in my hands. "I live here too, Mark. This is my home." He scoffed, a derisive sound that cut me to the core. "This seat is for my real daughter, get out." And then he shoved me. It wasn't a violent shove, not enough to send me sprawling, but it was forceful enough to make me stumble backward, my chair scraping the wall, loud in the sudden, shocked silence. The air left my lungs in a ragged gasp. All eyes were on us. My mom had stopped in the doorway, a platter of roasted vegetables clutched in her hands, her face a mask of horror. My vision blurred. I could feel tears stinging my eyes, but I refused to let them fall, not in front of him. Not in front of her. Something inside me snapped. I looked at Mark, at the contempt in his eyes, at Chloe's smug face. And then I looked at my mom, her face contorted in pain and confusion, and a different kind of anger surged through me, anger at her for allowing this to happen, for not protecting me. I straightened up, pushing my chair further back, away from the table. "You know what?" I said, my voice rising, trembling with a mixture of rage and raw hurt. "You're right, this isn't my seat. This isn't my home, not anymore." I turned to my mom, who was now sobbing silently, tears streaming down her face. "Mom, I love you, but I can't do this anymore." And then, without another word, I walked out. I walked past the shocked faces of my relatives, past the twinkling lights and the festive decorations, and out into the cold Christmas night. I heard my mom call my name, a desperate, broken sound, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. I walked for what felt like miles, the icy wind whipping at my hair and stinging my cheeks, mirroring the chill in my heart. I ended up at my best friend's house, where her family welcomed me in without question, their warmth a stark contrast to the icy reception I'd just received. I spent Christmas there, and it was the most peaceful Christmas I'd had in years. The aftermath was, as expected, chaotic. My mom called me endlessly, heartbroken and apologetic. She tried to make me come home, pleaded with me to give Mark another chance. But I couldn't. Something had fundamentally broken that night. Mark, for his part, sent a dismissive text a few days later, saying I was overreacting, and that he was just trying to make a point. Chloe, of course, remained silent, probably reveling in my absence. I stayed with my friend until it was time to leave for college. My mom visited me there, bringing me my packed bags and promising that things would change. I told her I needed space, that I couldn't forgive Mark, and that I needed to figure out what home truly meant to me. College was a fresh start, a liberation. I thrived, making new friends, focusing on my studies, and finally finding a sense of belonging. My relationship with my mom slowly healed, though it was never quite the same. She eventually realized the depth of Mark's cruelty and the impact it had on me. She started therapy, and eventually, after years of trying to make it work, she divorced him. It was a long, painful process for her, but she told me it was the best decision she ever made. Chloe, to my knowledge, maintained a strained relationship with her father, and eventually moved to a different city after college, rarely seeing him. I have never seen Mark again since that Christmas night. I don't regret walking out. It was a painful, dramatic exit, but it was also my declaration of independence, my way of saying I deserved better. It taught me the importance of setting boundaries and prioritizing my own well-being. even when it means making incredibly difficult choices. Looking back, that Christmas night was not just about a seat at a table. It was about finally claiming my own place in the world, a place where I was valued and respected, not just tolerated. It was a harsh lesson, learned at a harsh time, but it shaped me into the strong, independent woman I am today. If you've ever felt like an outsider in your own home, or if you've had to make a drastic decision to protect your peace, then you understand. Like this video if you were on my side, subscribe for more stories like this, and share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. I'll see you all in the next story.